Morning, welcome to my kitchen, and my name is Stuart Stevenson, and I'm an English teacher at Northwest Indian College, and I was one of the original founders of the Stone Soup Initiative that Northwest Indian College's first year experience team came up with as a way to build community amongst not just students and faculty, but administration and classified staff at Northwest Indian College, and to keep people fed with healthy homemade food. So now we're in the midst of a pandemic, and it's even more important to come together as a community, at least virtually, and to eat healthy homemade food. So today we are making clam chowder, and not just making clam chowder or sharing a recipe, but sharing some techniques and tricks to make your own homemade stock, some knife skills, how to cut an onion without crying, and other tips and techniques. So we have today bacon. Everything's better with bacon. So when you are using a bacon in a soup, you don't need to buy expensive, like perfect slices of bacon. Get the ends and pieces, right? It's a lot cheaper. You're gonna chop it up anyway. So buy the ends and pieces. Save yourself some money. When you cook off your bacon, save the bacon grease. I like to call it liquid gold, right? It's full of flavor. Anytime you're going to cook something savory where you would use vegetable or olive oil or even butter, what good cooking amounts to is layering of flavors. And so if you start with bacon fat, you're already putting wonderful flavor in your food. This is a huge pot of seafood stock. Did I buy boxes or cans of stock? No. That's just a waste of money. So anytime you cook, you need to save your bits and ends and pieces and bones and shrimp shells, carrot peels, onion ends, celery butts. Save them, because that is what goes into making a great stock. So I keep in my freezer gallon Ziploc bags that are full of what most people would throw in the trash. Celery butts, onion skins, carrot peelings and ends, and just keep it in your freezer, because all you need, this makes a great vegetarian stock all by itself. When I buy prawns, I buy them peeled and deveined, but in the shells, and I save the shells. And that makes a great seafood stock, just simmered in water. So save what you normally would throw out, because you're gonna fish it out anyway. You're not gonna eat the shells or the carrot peels or the onion skins, right? It's just flavoring. I don't know how many of you buy rotisserie chickens at the grocery store, but not only is it a quick and easy meal, but save those bones. If you're not gonna make the stock right away, throw it in a bag in the freezer. Chicken bones, beef bones, they are all the basis for a wonderful meat stock. And onion skins not only add the flavor, but I think some of you know that they are a natural dye. They will turn things a yellowish brown. So if you're making a chicken stock, it will give wonderful color to your broth as well as flavor. So what else do you add to your stock pot besides the veggie ends and pieces? Today we're using shrimp shells because it's a seafood stock. Could be a chicken carcass. Hey, Thanksgiving's next week. Don't you dare throw out that turkey carcass. Okay? Not only is there a ton of leftover meat in all the nooks and crannies, but you put that in a big pot with some veggies. The Holy Trinity is carrot, onion, and celery. But you need your aromatics too. These are bay leaves. Obviously, they're just there for flavor. You can use fresh herbs. This is thyme. I use the thyme to flavor the stock. You can just strip the little leaves off with your fingers. Go from the tender end to the, and then, do I throw this out? Heck no, that goes in my bag for next pot of stock, right? And herbs can be expensive, and spices, but if you go to the Mexican section of your grocery store, you'll find the pegboard with all these little plastic bags of spices that are a ton cheaper than buying your McCormick or whatever, you know, in the baking aisle. So look for bay leaves, thyme, oregano. Look for it in the grocery store in the Mexican food section. Save the stems. Again, if you're using parsley or cilantro and making tacos, save the stems. Throw them in your veggie bag in the freezer. Don't throw out your bacon fat. Speaking of bacon fat, I cooked off 3 pounds of bacon. I have to turn on the oven fan for a second here. And I poured most of it off, but I left the rest in the pan with a few little pieces of bacon in there because I could cook off my celery and onion in just some vegetable oil. But again, it's about building flavor. So why not cook them in bacon fat? So we'll get that going. You don't want to just throw your celery and onion into your pot. You want to give them a little saute first and get them softened up a little bit. But as someone has told me more than once, you don't want them to get mushy. You want to have a little crunch to your veg. So we're going to get that rolling around in the pan, coated with that bacon fat, and you want to season as you go. So what do we have? We have bacon fat, celery, and onion. So at each step, without being too heavy-handed, you want to add some seasoning. So there's a little coarse sea salt. I'm a big pepper fan. You can either use fresh ground black pepper, but I think I heard someone say once, if you're cooking white food, which this chowder is white food, you may want to use white pepper. So there's a little white pepper. Turn that back up. And season as you go. The stock was made with shrimp shells, carrot ends, onion ends and peels, and celery butts. This is what I fished out of that pot. You can see celery butts, fish ends, here's shrimp shells, celery butts, bay leaf, onion skins. So no, I'm not going to eat this, but I'm going to eat that. So I just wanted to show you that a carrot, that's all it takes to make stock. And again, season as you go. This has salt and pepper and a little garlic powder, a little onion powder. And how do you know it? You have to taste it. A wooden spoon is your best friend when you're cooking. Hot food will make a metal spoon seriously hot. And you don't want to put a hot metal spoon in your mouth or stand there for 5 minutes blowing on it. So, a wooden spoon. Doesn't burn your mouth. Now, if you're cooking for your family, you can go ahead and double dip. But if you're cooking for a crowd, have more than one. And you can throw that one in the sink. Things that take longer to cook should go in first. So, I put 20 pounds of diced red potatoes in here yesterday when I made the stock. And then I refrigerated it overnight to finish it off this morning for all of you. What's floating around in there that's green are those little fresh thyme leaves. So we have a beautiful seafood stock that's just awaiting our sauteed veggies that just need a little more time to soften up. You don't want to brown them. You want them translucent, just softened a little bit. They say in the restaurant business to sweat your vegetables, which sounds gross, but it just means to get them warmed up and softened a bit. So while that's working, potatoes. I use little red potatoes. It's your choice if you're making a soup that has potatoes in it, be it chowder or potato and vegetable or chicken and potato. But red and white potatoes are more waxy and they'll hold their shape better, and you don't have to peel them. Most of the vitamins and nutrients in potatoes are in the skins. So you can use the waxier potatoes, or you can use the good old Idaho russet, which is starchier. You can peel them if you prefer them that way, but I think leave the peels on. Not only is it less work, you're getting more vitamins that way. Potatoes and onions are cheap. That's the most forgiving thing about soup. It can be super healthy, especially if you make your own broth. And you can add anything in your refrigerator that looks like it may not last another day. Throw it in the soup, right? Onions are also super cheap. And people who say they don't like onions probably don't know how many onions they actually eat that are inside things, right? Because onions are a base for so many things. So people don't like to cut onions because they make you cry. They have fumes. So I'm going to show you how to cut an onion without crying. Cut your ends off and cut it in half. Now what am I going to do with those pieces? Where's the bag? Right in the bag for my next pot of stock. Peel your onion and right into the bag. Now, I'm not going to mess with two. I only need one to show you. So stand it on its side. Take your knife about a 1/4 inch in and cut almost all the way down, and do it again. So now you've cut it in 2 layers like that. Put it back on the flat side, and now almost all the way through. Again, about a 1/4 inch apart, just down the whole onion. So now you have a kind of accordion onion. And when you slice it, everything is now already diced. And you're not standing over a cutting board, chopping, 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 and having the fumes go up in your face. So when you get to the end of already diced, you have to just take the end and no tears. Boy, I'm gonna have to have something for breakfast that has onions in it now. Your potatoes. You want your potatoes to be kind of a uniform size so they cook at the same time. So the best way to cut a potato is what I call to plank it. So cut the end off your potato. Where does this go? In the bag. Turn it on its end. Now you have a flat surface. Again, about 1/4 inch. Open it up. That's 2 planks. Lengthwise. And then you have a uniform dice on your potatoes. Ooh, looks like I'm having hash browns for breakfast. So knife skills. If you're using canned clams for your chowder, if I had my druthers, I'd be down at Long Beach on the peninsula digging fresh razor clams and steaming up some fresh clams and saving all their juices for my stock and making chowder with fresh clams. Don't buy clam juice. It's expensive. If you go to a bulk grocery store, you can buy bigger cans of clams. But when you open a can of minced clams, minced, they're already cut up for you. Those clams are not just sitting there all dried up. They're in a ton of juice. Don't pour that down the drain. Bring it to the party. Everybody in the pool. Minced clams are already cooked. And everybody knows that clams can be a little on the chewy side. So don't throw them in the pot till the very end. You just want to reheat them. Yeah, their juice can go in the pot right now. But save the clams till the end. Look at our veggies. They're starting to get a little shiny and softened up a little bit. And like I said, a wise soup eater once told me, it's nice to have a little crunch to your vegetables. Soup should have some texture, even though it's soup. You want it to have a little texture. So you're going to build it in layers. That's just about ready to go into the pot. Excuse me. There are a lot of folks who are lactose intolerant. You can get almond milk or soy milk to make your chowder creamy. Or you can use whole milk or cream or half and half. So again, that doesn't go in till the end. The basis of your soup is your seafood stock. or your chicken stock, or your beef stock. I'm a little worried this pot's going to totally overflow on you, Kaya. I may scoop out some of that liquid so we can put it together without it. But there's no cream in this. It's just seafood stock and potatoes and fresh thyme right now. Make some room in that pot so we can add all the goodies. And this is making soup for a crowd. Obviously, if you're cooking for your family, you're not going to be using a huge pot of stock and a huge frying pan full of vegetables. So you don't need to really measure, just cut back on the ingredients. That's 20 pounds potatoes, probably about 8 to 10 gallons of stock. This is a dozen onions and 3 bunches of celery. So just downsize, right? An onion or two, a bunch of celery, half a dozen potatoes. But you can see the veggies now are kind of softened up a bit. This pot's so big that I'm glad it has a handle on one side, because it's going in. I need my big look at that. So now we have our stock, our potatoes, our celery and onion, and the celery and onion were cooked in bacon fat, seasoned with salt and pepper. So again, building flavors. Yeah. Uh-huh. So when I opened the clams, I drained off all the juice except for a little bit down there. I've got those separated out. And where is the bacon, you ask? Well, if you added the bacon to the soup, it would get all squishy and floppy and not, it would flavor it, but it wouldn't be any crunch or fun to it. So I want texture with my soup. I want to have a little crunch, not just to the vegetables. So I put green onions and bacon on top of the soup after it's served. Not only because it looks pretty, but it gives you that texture and that crunch. Okay? Nothing's better than big, shallow soup bowls, because you can put lots of toppings on, right? If it's chili, then tons of cheese, right? Because you've got more surface area. So these are my favorite bowls for soups and stews and chilies. All right. We're going to give this another stir. Got a good ratio of liquid to veggies. And mind you, it's just veggies and stock right now. We haven't added anything else. And it's getting nice and steamy, nice and hot. So yes, I have another refrigerator. What do you think? Do you want me to go dairy or non-dairy?
I think, I don't know.
Dairy! Heavy cream!
That's what I was thinking too.
Costco sells 40% heavy whipping cream. And so you don't need that much. So eyeball it. People always ask me for recipes and I'm all like, I don't have one. And so it may change every time you make it, depending on what kind of veggies you have, what kind of bones you have. And so what did I glug in there? Maybe a cup and a half. So in this huge pot of soup, which is now white and creamy looking, there's only a cup and a half of heavy cream.
So you don't put that much.
No, you don't need that much. You can use whole milk. You can go non-dairy like the almond milk, but heavy cream. So do you want it thicker? I was going to make a roux, which is flour and fat, to thicken it. Some people like their chowder super thick, almost like wallpaper paste. Well, you have a couple of options. You can use cornstarch. You can use flour mixed with an oil. You cannot just dump flour or cornstarch in there because you'll get all lumpy. So you can make a roux, R-O-U-X, in a pan. Let's do it. Because I think we want it a little thicker, but we don't want it super pasty. So we're gonna take butter and bacon. Yeah. You could even use your bacon fat instead of butter. But let's layer some flavors here, because we've already got bacon fat from the sauteing the veggies. So we're gonna get this butter melting. And you're gonna add about the same amount of flour. I don't measure. It's not an exact science like baking. You can be pretty free-handed. If you want to use cornstarch, if you have gluten issues, make a slurry. Mix your cornstarch with some cold water before you add it. Okay? You can also use arrowroot. There are a number of different kinds of thickeners. So we're going to get this butter melted and incorporated with the flour. You have to give it a little bit of time, just a few minutes, to kind of cook the flour a bit, because flour can have a very raw taste in its natural. It's just a roux. And if you ever eaten Cajun gumbo and all that, yeah, that's how they thicken their gumbo and jambalaya. And they cook the roux till it's actually brown, the flour. So we don't want brown roux because we're having a white chowder, but we do want to cook it a wee bit to take the raw edge off the flour. I like a little thickness to my chowder, but not like pasty thick. That should do. So not only are we going to get the thickener, we're also getting the butter. Add some more flavor to this. In goes the roux. Yes, I have every kitchen tool known to man or woman. So we're going to give that a little whisk, and that will thicken the chowder. Depends on how much you use. But the chowder or your soup needs to be hot for that thickening process, that chemical process of thickening. You can also, and I was going to do it this way, I confess, add the flour to your vegetables and bacon fat.
Oh,
Right? But I spaced out and didn't do it, so I just did it on the side. So, but you've already got that fat that you're cooking your veggies in. So you could have just sprinkled the flour in with your veggies and bacon fat. This is looking good. I haven't had breakfast. Got a whisk full of veggies.
so when you do the roux, you can also do with the vegetables, either or, but
Yeah.
not both, right?
You could.
Depending on how thick you want it.
Depends on how thick you want it, right? But if you have like, I would cook it in more fat then, the veggies, right? Add more fat, either just bacon fat or butter or vegetable oil or a combination of the above, because the flour is going to seize it up, right? And get the veggies cooked first before you do the flour. Otherwise, you know, you just want to add the flour at the end and kind of give it a little stir and cook it a little bit with the veggies, and then add all of it to the pot. Okay, this is just almost there, guys. Here I chopped veggies for 2 hours last night and didn't cut myself. And then I cut my finger on the lid of a can. Of all things, right? Here I am playing with knives. And not a nick or a mark to be seen. And when I go to open a stupid can, I cut myself. So these are all the canned clams. I did drain them and put the juice in the stock, but of course there's still some juice left in there. So last but not least, it is clam chowder, but put them in last so that you don't cook them any more than they are already cooked. So canned minced clams, if you can get fresh clams, by all means, go for it. Steam them, chop them up, save all the juices, and you will have the best chowder. So now we have a beautiful looking chowder, and it will thicken up a bit as that roux gets in there. So we're going to keep giving it a little bit of a stir. And this is my favorite ladle of all time. Isn't it pretty? I bought it because it was so pretty. So we're going to scoop out a sample bowl of our chowder. Gonna taste it for seasoning with yet another wooden spoon. I don't like to oversalt things. I think that people, if they like things more salty, or with, I'm a black pepper freak. You go ahead and add it, right? I'm not gonna dictate how much salt that you put in your food. I would pepper it for sure. So, you have this beautiful bowl of chowder. Everything's better with bacon. And that way your bacon stays crispy. And you eat with the eyes first. So some nice green onion. If this is my breakfast, some black pepper. A nice fat spoon. And you're ready to go. So I hope you enjoy the clam chowder today. I hope you start making your own homemade soups and sharing it with people you love. Because I think, as Kaya said, soup is like family. The more ingredients, the better, right? Or something like that. So make your own stock. Make it with love, share it with people you love, and have a good, healthy meal in these trying times. Love y'all.